Hello, and welcome to Regrets I've Had a Few. I'm Paul Hunter, Artistic Director of Told by an Idiot, and this is a podcast where I talk to friends and colleagues delving into what made them the person they are today.
Hello and welcome. My guest this month quite literally ran away with the circus. She has gone on to become a unique and charismatic performer with stints in the West End and the National Theatre and shows including The Grinning Man, Amelie the Musical and La Strada. Welcome, Audrey Brisson.
Hello, hello.
It's so lovely to see you. It's been too long since
It really has.
It has. Probably a couple of years ago since we were running around a field exploring that crazy idea in Somerset, but we won't dwell on that. It's lovely to have you with us. And I'm conscious, my first question, which is what I ask everybody, I think you're going to give the most unusual response that I normally get, but I'm going to ask this question because I always like to take people back to the very beginnings of their theatre experience or show business experience.
Yes.
And obviously, and I can share this with the listeners, you did grow up around a circus, in and around a circus. That's because your father was the composer, is that right?
So back in the day, he was the band leader and music arranger. If you're talking about when I started. So like he joined the company Cirque Du Soleil in 87. And so I was touring with them, as the daughter of, and then in 89, I joined in on stage. Backstage was enough for me, Paul. I wanted on stage.
So this is obviously, I think for a lot of people, wow, to grow up and be around and perform at Cirque du Soleil is something quite extraordinary and unique. So what's your earliest memory of being around that group or troupe or whatever?
Quite a few. So actually, God, so yeah, in 87 or 88, so I must have been 2 or 3. I'm so the circus or the stage was in a tent, and back in the day, the seats were benches, especially at the far end of the tent, and you had underneath that you had a net. So if you dropped things, things would fall in the net, and I must have dropped my dummy. And my mother, who didn't want to, have to go downstairs and try and find the dummy, said that the clown had stolen the dummy. But the thing is, it created an anger and a hatred of that particular clown for me for years afterwards, because I was like, he's the dummy stealer. So I didn't think she expected that to have such weight. But that's definitely one thing I remember. I remember walking around backstage, going to the canteen, or just, being thrown around in the air by some acrobats, and then being very desperate of sleeping in trailers, because back then some people slept in trailers on site. And then really early on, kind of just being very excited at the prospect of taking part in the show, because it was just I watched the show pretty much every night, and I really wanted to take part of it. And there was a little girl who was 6 years old at the time, and so I think she had to go back to go to primary school, and they asked me to take over, and I gladly did.
At 6 years of age?
I was 4. She was 6. I was 4. Yeah.
Wow. And what did you have
Yeah.
to do?
So it was the last act of the show. We were 16 on, like, it was a bicycle act, and at the very, very end of the act, you suddenly had, because he's old fashioned type of thing. You had like the big red curtains, and then
Yep.
they would open up, and then little me, the ponytails would kind of just run, and the entire audience would go, "Oh, so cute." And then I would be put on one of the acrobat's shoulders, and we would go on the bicycle, and we would be 16 on one bicycle, and we would basically, cycle around the stage. And that was it. That was my one moment in the show.
Wow. I mean, I have
Yes.
to say, obviously, the time of year as we get towards the Christmas period, a lot of people, when they actors talk about their first experience, it's maybe being the innkeeper in the nativity at school. Whereas what you've just described, it sounds incredibly romantic and incredibly exotic. It also, when you talk about how young you were, it just makes me think of like Buster Keaton, who, grew up with his parents, and then he wandered on and everyone laughed, and then his dad started throwing him around, and
Yeah.
it has
Which
that kind of
and it's a beautiful gift. I mean, it means that that you've been in the you've been surrounded by it all your life. The one thing that I find took away from me was the choosing what to do in your life and seeing it as a passion. Do you see what I mean? Kind of going, I really desperately want to do this. It's maybe not going to be easy. Your parents probably won't want to, they'll say, no, be a doctor. No, no. No, my parents were pushing me to stay in this industry when I was going, I should go and study science. They're going, no, no, go and study music instead. And so um, sometimes I go, it feels like I didn't get to choose what I do in life. It kind
Yeah.
of, it chose me instead. And now it's
That's,
just like, I don't know what else to do.
well,
If
that's
this
very
fails,
interesting.
Paul, I don't know what else to do.
Well, it is interesting. That's a very different perspective to most people. You're right. My parents
Mm,
spent all their time trying to discourage me not to do what I do. But I think it's interesting as we continue, and obviously I'm going to talk to you more about your extraordinary roles and the things you've done. But it is interesting that point where I suppose performers do reach where they go, well, I can't do anything else. I remember in the pandemic, we all remember the pandemic and theatres closing. And I remember sitting at a dinner table with my family, and my son Dexter, who was about 7 or 8 at the time, trying to be helpful, said, Dad, if theatres don't start again, maybe you could get a job at Tesco's. And I, and I thought about it for a bit, and I said, Dexter, I'm not sure I would get a job at Tesco. I think
Paul
it
could
would be
work at
people ahead
Tesco.
of
He
me.
just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah, exactly. I thought so. I can certainly relate to that, but it's and how did schooling work? Did you go to school, or were you taught at the circus, or how did it
So
work?
for that particular sit when I was 4, I wasn't going to school. And then eventually when I joined back, because that's why I left, I did that particular show for only a few months. And then I went back to Montreal. And then when I was 11, I joined the cirque again. This time my father was the composer and we created, it was for the creation of Kidam. So that was in 1996. And there then I stayed for 5 years, which means that it was the end of my primary school up to my high school, secondary school. I don't know how you guys call it here. Um, and so we had a little trailer on site with with a tutor, but it was very much like homeschool type thing. Uh, it was great. I loved it. School would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then you'd have a little dinner break, and then boop, you do the show.
Wow. And did you tour mainly North America, or were you going internationally? Or
So for that big 5-year one, we did 3 years in America, and then the last 2 years were in Europe. And then the show carried on. I left.
wow, what an extraordinary beginning journey into show business. That's extraordinary. And then when did you kind of feel the interest in something that was maybe moving away from circus and towards theatre, or was that a gradual journey?
Yeah, so then when I came back to Montreal, I still had 2 years of high school to finish. And then we have something in Quebec called Cégep, which is the equivalent of your A levels, which I did in classical singing. And then then I did a BA at university in social science. So I was really moving away from it. And it was a friend of my father, he's British but lives in America, Jonathan Dean, a wonderful sound designer, kind of pushed me to try try out for drama schools. And he wrote a recommendation letter for me. And I didn't think that I would get in, but I tried. I tried it in New York and I tried in London. Uh, and yeah, they decided to give me a chance. And so I came here and I thought, I'm just going to do 3 years. I'm going to do my BA in acting, and then I'm going to go back to Montreal and see what's what. And no, I just never left.
Wow. And yeah, that was at Central, was it?
That was at Central, yes, at Central School of Speech and Drama.
And what time period were you there?
I graduated in 2009, so I did 3 years there.
And that was on
Yes,
the BA acting course.
in the BA acting course, yes, with the music theatre pathway.
Ah, very good. Very good.
Yes.
We haven't talked about your music yet. We will get to that. So so did you know London? Was London a new city
Well,
for
so
you?
my dad lived in London at the time, which is what, because I had I'd also been accepted in a school in New York, and that technically would have been closer to home. It was only
Mhm.
6 hours drive from Montreal, but my dad was in London, and this Jonathan Dean fellow was really pushing for his own country, and rightly so. Um, and yeah, so I came here, and it was a good decision. I
Yeah, it's
think.
clearly
I think.
worked out. It worked out very well for you. Am I right that your first job after leaving Central was Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe. Is that right?
No,
Oh,
it was knee high actually.
oh, was it? Oh,
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I mean,
What
my
was?
first job was an orange, now EE, but orange advert, and then toilet paper. No, it was a hereafter, like a tiny tiny thingy with Clint Eastwood. But my first theater was knee high. It was
Ah,
the Wild Bride and
well,
Midnight
there we
Pumpkin.
are. Because obviously we
Yes.
have many things in common, but knee high does connect us, of course. Both of us having
Yes.
performed with Mike and Emma. So tell me, how did knee high find you, or you find knee high?
Yeah, I had through the normal audition process with lovely Sam Jones as casting director, and I did an audition. My mother had traveled all the way from Canada to help me for my audition for Wild Bride, and I went there. It was at the Spotlight Studios in Trafalgar Square, and the person right before me, Emma, was laughing. You could hear everything in the room, and Emma was in bits, and I could hear it. And then it was my turn, and she didn't laugh one time. It was just very serious Emma Rice face. And so I came out thinking, well, that's done. I obviously didn't get it, and I was so crushed. We went to St. James Park. We had a little, glass of champagne, and I was destroyed. And the one time, because this never happens, one time in my life, I got the phone call an hour after the audition to go, "You
Wow.
got the job." It was like a movie, Paul. It was really lovely.
Wow. And it's
Um,
interesting, isn't it? We, as actors, we carry on and we put ourselves up for these jobs, and we get some and we don't get some, and it's part of
yeah,
our life. But it is interesting. I can totally relate to you. I hate that feeling of sitting outside a room and hearing what's going on before you go in, and you're thinking,
it's awful. It's
exactly.
awful. Yeah, yeah.
But
Especially now that
I do remember Wild Bride. I enjoyed it immensely. I remember it was in the Grand Hall at Battersea where I saw it for Christmas, and
yes,
and I remember speaking to you after. It was a fantastic, one of Nihai's wonderful
I think so.
Christmas extravaganzas.
I think so too. Oh wait, Midnight Pumpkin or the Wild Bride?
Oh, I've got confused with the two shows there. I saw both the shows. Sorry,
It's
no, I'm
because
thinking.
no,
Yeah,
yeah, because we
yeah,
were doing them simultaneously for
yes,
moments,
of course. No,
but yeah. But no, God, yeah, both of them were so fantastic, and I fell in love with the company and the experience of creating a show at the Barns. It's
yeah,
just something
yeah.
that you don't forget.
No, it's true. It's very true, isn't it? It's unlike any other place in a way. It's so unique, and I think that era that you're talking about, and I was around a similar in and out around a similar time to you, was a really golden era for the company, wasn't it? So stuff
It
like
really was.
those
Yeah.
extraordinary ensembles, and I suppose also you brought your musicals as well as your extraordinary acting and physical skills. Your musical skills were, because what do you play? What instruments do you play?
Well, that's the thing is like I don't like I dabble and I fake a few instruments. And that's what's beautiful about Mihai is that
Yeah,
before having worked with Mihai, I would never have, dared to go, well, I'll have a go. They just put an instrument in your hands and you go, you don't know how to play it? Well, just go and spend the afternoon with it and then you will.
yeah.
And that's just really phenomenal. And yeah, the accordion was what I played in the Wild Bride.
Well,
Uh
there's something else we share, because I totally relate to what you just said. When I first turned up in, oh God, 24 years ago to do the Red Shoes at the Barns with Emma,
yes.
one of the first things they did was give me an accordion. And I remember saying, I think there's been some kind of mistake. Um, I can't play the, and they went, no, it's fine, you will. I thought, this is mad. Of course I can't. But of course they didn't give you an option. You just had to do it. And I quite like that. I quite
It really is,
enjoyed that.
and it works because then it gives you the confidence,
Yeah,
and you fake it till you make it, and
exactly.
I
And
think
also,
Mike Shepherd is a good
fortunately,
teacher for that.
exactly, and as you know, also fortunately, they also surround you with some very fine musicians as well. So, or
Exactly.
certainly
So,
me, I
no, yes.
exactly. So, how many shows did you go on to do with Knee
With
High?
Nihai, I did The Wild Bride, Midnight's Pumpkin, Dead Dog,
Yes, of course.
uh, and then Flying Lovers. I think it's those 4 shows.
I really, I mean, I saw all those shows, and I'm very fond of Dead Dog. It's one of my favorite Knee High shows, of the political anarchy that bubbles away in Carl's and Mike's vision for that. But I also really, really love Blind Lovers. I saw it at
Oh,
the Globe. I saw it in the
Sam
Sun
Wanamaker.
Wanamaker, and
Yes.
I loved it. Thought it was such an extraordinary mix of things, and also it was really nice to see that vision that Emma brilliantly has.
There is a link between The Wild Ride and Flying Lovers for me, and it's that it's two shows that Emma um had done some 10, 20 years prior, or done a version of. So she had done a version of The Wild Ride, and changed it completely, bar some like the woman, or the main role being split into three parts, three women. That is what she kept from the original. And then in Flying Lovers, she and her husband at the time uh, did perform in Flying Lovers in a version of. And I think so when she comes with material that is so close to her heart and has already so many layers, it's phenomenal. It's rich. It's a rich gift.
Yes,
So yeah.
I would agree with that. Definitely, definitely. And then obviously you've worked with some extraordinary directors, and Emma being one of them. How did you meet or connect with Sally Cookson?
I auditioned for Romeo and Juliet, and Benji Bauer was the composer, and Benji being linked with Ian
Mhm.
Ross from Knee High. So I think that he, I think, recommended me to audition. So thank you, Benji, because that was oh yeah, that was really tough because it was a Shakespeare role, and English is not my first language, as you probably guessed by now. And I was so scared, and it was, again, she's another phenomenal lady to work with. I
Yeah, see,
I love Sally.
yeah, no, I'm very fond of. I've never worked with directly. We've talked about various things. It's never happened, but I really like what she does. And when I talk to friends like yourself who've worked with her on shows, her approach and her sense of genuine collaboration with the company, I think is a really great thing. Everyone
I
talks about that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a big respect from her to the people she works with.
Before I go to my next kind of question, and I don't, just because our podcast is called Regrets, I've had a few. I don't always ask regrets, but as someone who grew up in the circus and developed all these, I'm sure, extraordinary skills and lived that life, do you ever regret not staying more in that world, or is there enough of it that still fills you from that world as well?
I mean, the Cirque world,
Yes, the circus world.
the circus world. No, I don't regret it. No, no, because it gave me what it needed to give me at the time. It gave me confidence on stage. It gave me a certain work ethic and work stamina. That is very useful to me now. But uh, but then all the companies and the people I've worked with since, and drama school has kind of given me more layers, so that when now I go and see a Cirque show, I can imagine what it would be like if those layers were added on. You see what I mean?
Yes, yes, I can. That's a very
Um,
interesting way of putting it. Yeah. Now, I wanted to talk about something in your work, which I'm very interested in, is uh, I'm sure I can say this because I've seen it in print, so I know it's happening. But you you will have played three very iconic roles in a way. So for me, that have also been played by iconic performers on film. So I'm talking about
Lestrada, Amelie, and Piaf.
Lestrada, Amelie, and you're next year brilliantly going to play Piaf. I have to say, a part that I think you are born to play. I'm so excited to see you play Piaf. And I'll leave that there because I can see your slightly daunted face there. But I'm intrigued because, of course, in the Lestrada we have it's played by Fellini's wife, the extraordinary Coletta Messina, and then Amelie, Audrey Tautou, and then of course Marion Cotillard. When you know you're going to play in a very different medium, theatre's totally different. I get that, and a
Yes.
very different take on it, and all of those things. But there's an awareness that these roles have been played. Do you completely ignore the films? Do you go nowhere near them? How do you approach it?
So for Lestrada, bizarrely, it didn't even occur to me to worry about that because I was so curious about how we were going to translate a film that is so, uh, the magic of the film is the landscape of Italy, and so
Yeah,
how do you translate that? Because
yeah.
otherwise, the story is very, very minimal.
Yeah.
There's
And
not
and
much
and there's
happening.
into is that the circus of it in the world of Lestrade.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And how to touch, the abuse, but like in a modern way. And I think that we were so focused on how to make sure that the story would land. Uh, and we had the Bellini's granddaughter who was very present and came to see the show. And yeah, so that was a great gift. And she was very, very supportive and very lovely. With Amelie, yes, a little bit more. I was aware that
I suppose
there was quite a big.
and it's a popular contemporary film, isn't it? Whereas Lestrade is a
Exactly.
classic film. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and I know it's weird, but because we have the same first name, suddenly people were, making loads of reference and uh, yeah, about how I was going to take that on board. And I think that Michael Fentman was just very brilliant at getting me to find my own version of it. We played slightly more into the spectrum of Amelie. Yeah, the loneliness of each character, and I don't know. Yes, it didn't bother me. It made me nervous for a second, and then yeah, was got caught in the work, guess, and I
Yes.
just
Yeah.
decided to put that aside. And with Piaf, interesting that you talk about the film because I didn't even think about the film. I was thinking about the woman herself.
Oh, yes,
Um,
of course. No,
um,
yes.
and that it worries me. It does. I think that as soon as you try to imitate,
Yeah.
you fail. So I think it's about finding the essence of what you want. I don't have Piaf's voice. My voice is very different from hers, and so if I
Yeah.
try to sound like her, then it's going to sound like Audrey is trying to sound like
No,
Piaf.
no, I
So
totally.
hopefully I'll be able to find her essence. She was such a strong, fiery beast of a woman who kind of experienced all of her emotions, the emotions of the intensity of her life through her songs. So hopefully
Yes,
it will tap
I'm
into that.
sure I'm fascinated. And also, is it the Pam Gems script,
Yes, it's the
which is
yes,
a fantastic script?
yes,
It's a
yes,
really,
which has been slightly tweaked and played with to keep it fresh.
yeah, no, of course. It's I totally relate to what you're saying about when you're working on something where it's an iconic figure like Piaf. Of course, I mean,
Mm.
I was very clumsily linking the three things together,
No, but you're right.
and I think Mariam Cotillard is brilliant in it, her performance, but I'm very different. But the figure of Piaf is so iconic, and I totally get what you mean. When we made our show, Charlie and Stan, about Charlie
Mm.
Chaplin and Stan Laurel, their early life, and we were looking for the original cast of that, which turned out to be Amalia Vitali playing Chaplin and Jerome Marguerite playing Stan. They very consciously, our decision was to go nowhere near something that felt like Chaplin, because it's an impossible job for someone to be Chaplin. You can't be Chaplin.
Yeah,
And by
yeah.
by working with the brilliant Amalia, we were able to find the spirit of Chaplin through Amalia, and the fact that it was a woman, there was a slight remove and all of that stuff. So I totally get where you're coming at in relation to the peer.
What's the name of the film about Bob Dylan? And you have all these
Yes,
different versions of Bob Dylan. And for me, Kate Blanchett is the one that represents
I
Bob Dylan even the most.
I totally agree. And I think even more so, it's a very good reference there. I think also that's what theatre does better than anything else. It allows people to be something that might appear to be a million miles from them, but in their spirit. And I really do. So you go into rehearsal early next year? Is that right?
Yes, early March. It's exactly the same time slot at the Watermill than Amity was. So it's
Uh,
kind of a
is it the same team of people? And
nope, new team, new
yeah,
team. I mean, I don't know we don't know yet who else is going to be in the show, but
yeah.
different creators. Yes, Kimberly Spikes, who I've worked with before.
And it's such a great space. I've never worked there, but I enjoy seeing stuff there. It's so intimate. And
Oh, it's lovely. It's lovely. And actually creating a show there is absolutely fabulous because you live there, you live on site,
yes,
and
you do,
it's
don't you? Yes,
and
yes.
it's like in the countryside, and it's just idyllic. It's beautiful. You forget, and especially with Amelie, I didn't go back to London
Just stayed
at
there.
all. I stayed there for the entire rehearsal / run process, and yeah, the shock of going back to London
Yeah.
at the end was just quite
Well, I have to say, my mother-in-law has a theatre group. Lots of older people, and they book to go and see plays, and they're regular attendees at the Water. And she said,
uh-huh.
already booked for 50 of us to go and see this new production of Pia. And I didn't know. I said, "Oh, it sounds very interesting." And then I went, "I know Audrey." So you will have a very keen, I can guarantee a very keen 50. I don't know when they're coming, but they will be very supportive and keen. Audrey, I'm very conscious it's your lunch break on your mystery project. I say no more. Um, before you go, it's been such a lovely time chatting with you. I always end by asking 7 rapid fire questions.
Okay, go.
So you just say the first response that comes into your head.
Okay,
Trapeze or tightrope?
trapeze. Oh,
Nina Simone or Ella Fitzgerald?
Ella Fitzgerald.
Ice skating or skiing?
Ice skating.
Mulled wine or mulled cider?
Mulled cider.
Cinderella or Snow White?
Oh, tough. Cinderella.
Singing or acting?
Acting.
And this last one is directly in relation to which of these people would you like to play on stage? Joan of Arc or Ava Perón?
Joan of Arc. Because I
Ah.
don't know who Ava Perón is. Is that awful?
She was the Evita. She was the wife of the
Oh
yes. Everyone, sorry, I should have said Evita. It's
no.
that's oh, now you're going to change your mind.
I might have went. No, I went with Joan of Arc, so I went with. Oh God, I went French again.
All right. If anyone's listening, I'm sure they could move on that. Audrey, lovely chatting to you. Have a lovely Christmas wherever you are, and I look forward to seeing you. I will definitely be in touch, and I look forward to seeing you as PF.
Oh, thank you. Lovely talking to you, Paul.
Take care, Audrey. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dear listeners, if you've enjoyed this idiot podcast, please spread the word